Namaste everyone. Our exploration for today is on harmony. Harmony, the quest of nature. You might ask me that why have I used the word quest when the natural state of the nature is harmony? And that is the very basis, that is the very essence of creation. And that is precisely what I wanted to speak about, that how, though our basic essence is harmony, most of our life we struggle with disharmony, aiming to achieve that state of which we have a sense of, but we don't know how to go to that. And yoga precisely becomes that process of going back to our original state. All our life, whatever we are doing on the outside, we have that sense that there's something which we want to go back to, something which feels more like home. But we are looking for some sense of direction, some sense of hand holding in different forms. That what form on the outside, it can be in the form of literature, scriptures, guru, anything from nature that can lead us to our own original state of being. And that is precisely how even nature works through us. Sri Aurobindo in one of his writings has said that man is among nature's first children who have the ability to put in a conscious effort and has shown a will to progress, has that inherent aspiration to grow. And that is what nature uses man as an instrument to work in the world. Because if we have really understood the purpose, especially when we are treading the path of integral yoga, which is awakening the divine energy in matter, which means that matter precisely is our field of work. And for if matter is our field of work, we have to become more and more aware of it, more and more connected to it. And the best part about the vastness of nature is that it is slow and patient with its children, which are we people. Because we have also understood that divine doesn't work through miracles, it works through our own nature. And that is why it is a long, laborious process, which essentially we call in our own language yoga. And that is how we speak, that it becomes a lifelong journey. So, when we really see that the intention of nature is for us to grow, it is also through our own nature that it works and takes us to our original goal, the original state. And in fact, in Ideal of Human Unity, Sri Aurobindo has spoken somewhere that whatever the ideal of human thought which we perceive, it is something the hidden intention of nature. So we can think that, oh, I've received an idea to change the world, or I have received this something which I will bring transformation. It is slowly that nature is working behind us and giving us that idea, depending on which stage of our journey we are in. And it is applicable at the individual level, it is also applicable in the collective level. So in the larger run, everything makes sense, but if we look at shorter, we might say that, oh, I applied an idea, it failed. Maybe again at an individual level or the collective level. But if we see it at the macro level, we see that, okay, all is a single plan and things are really coming into perspective. Because what happens is, if you really look at nature or equated it like a mother or a teacher, it's really like holding that space that, okay, this is your field of play. I am there on the background, I have the master plan, but I want you to explore, I want you to experiment with the sense that I am taking care behind. It's often when we forget that there's a guiding hand behind that we really identify with what is happening on our outside and we feel that restricted, constructed, or we have nowhere to go. So, this is a constant relation which we have with nature, which can be explored and experimented in different ways. And that is how everything we keep repeating that it's a process, it is a journey, it is not a one time effort. All our small efforts come together to make this relation of our own individuality with the nature around. And for us to express or rather experience that harmony which is ever present in nature, we have to work on our nature. And that is why self work becomes very, very important. Because if we are really working on the surface, the laws of nature can help us pass through life. There is no problem with that. If you think or feel that your purpose in life is to pass by it on a day to day basis, that okay, I know when I wake up, this is what I want to do, this is the family I have, these are my responsibilities, this is my workplace, and I come back to my family and I live a fairly simple and happy life on the surface, which has its merit, so you don't have to discard it. But if you are aware of that slight sense that something is missing, I just can't pinpoint my finger on what is it. So on the outside, I might look like a very successful person, very intelligent person who has attained all that what is, say, desirable on the outside. But there is a secret search for truth, there is a secret search for meaning, and these two are not coming together. So if these two are not coming together, then we need to reflect that what is the gap? Is there a gap between my intention and action? Is there some kind of falsehood in my seeking? Because, see, if we go back to the traditional teachings of which all of us are familiar with, our teachings have never asked us to reject the world. It has always asked us to live from a deeper place and be truthful in whatever we are doing. So, the divine teachings are never that don't do this or don't participate in the activity of nature. Like how I said, the purpose is transformation, which essentially means that this world is our play field. If I am isolating myself from the world, in my idea I might be changing myself, but in experience I'll not be able to change myself, because this is where I change. If before coming to share these things with you, I might have in my idea have seen that okay, this is what harmony means, this is what unity means, this is what it is. But it's only when I start sharing and interacting in this collective space will I actually know that how much have I actually understood, how much have I actually brought that in my experience. So, isolating yourself from the world does not bring change. It might give us a temporary field to kind of say bring us together. There's a possibility that when we are engaging with the world, it becomes very overpowering and we're like, wait, I just want to step back and just see what's happening. So, temporary pauses have their merit. It, in fact, in my own experience, it also plays a very important role to see things in perspective. But can it be the goal? No, because then how will we bring up the change which we are aspiring for? So that is why if we want to really bring in that sense of alignment with the world around, the first step is to bring in that alignment within ourselves. And when I speak about bringing that alignment within ourselves, essentially to grow more and more into awareness that who am I? And not who am I in a sense of philosophical understanding that, oh, what is the creation? Why am I here? What is my purpose? Yes, philosophical pursuits are the grounding, but then their application is what our aim and purpose is. And for the application part, we have to become aware of small day to day activities. That in everyday experience of mine, where is the disharmony? Where is the disconnect? And usually in our everyday experience, we see it in our workplace, we see it in our home, we see it in our different relationships which we share with the world. And we realize that because we are too identified with whatever little we know of ourselves, we try to make that as a reference point and interact in the world. And the more we widen our reference point, the more and more we grow into our own being. And the widening of our reference point is the journey of yoga. And that helps us in really holding that space for people around. So then I am not in that reactionary mode on a day to day basis, but I have that inability to pause and see that, okay, is this my reference point to interact with the world? Or can I just maybe step back and see what can I do? Because when I'm talking about my nature, we all know by now that we essentially speak about our thoughts, our emotions, our physical sense, and all of those things because these are our primary instrument. Now, if these are our primary instruments, we have to work through them. But how will we work through an instruments which are not on, say, talking terms or they are not in harmony? If you walk into a class and you want to speak to the students, but students are themselves having their own stories, own narrations, and they are not ready to listen to you. Everybody wants to just tell their own version because that is how they see the world. So what does the teacher do first? If you enter a room and you want to create that harmony, you're like, okay, tell me, what do you want? Okay, you tell me what do you want. So there's a sense of preparation which is very, very important. So I'm like, okay, these are the students, they want to say something, I will just hold that space for them because I am aware that what I want to bring to the class. So the divine is very much aware what the plan is for us. It's not that we are telling, oh, we can put in our little desires and ego self that, oh, I want this, oh, I want that. And it was like, okay, you want this. But I know what is good for you. When the time will be right, I will give you that. So it's really like entering into that classroom, if you look at classroom as life, and first listening to those students and saying, what do you want? And bringing them together to not completely rejecting them, but saying that, okay, this is what you think, but now can I speak? So the child also gets that I am heard, I am not rejected. And that is precisely what happens with our nature because the small desires, impulses towards anything which we have, we often see them in negative light. And especially when we are walking on the path of yoga, or at least we have that idea that I want to do something big. So if I'm walking the path and I'm like, no, my pursuit is higher truth, I'm in search of truth. And I'm thinking that thing, and next step, if I meet somebody and I talk, I feel a certain sense of emotion, which ideally I should not feel. So I'm like, oh my God, see, this is the contradiction I have. So rather than realizing that that is the law of nature, I will identify with it and blame myself. And that becomes a result of disharmony. But if I have knowledge, if I have that sense of objectivity, that whatever happens inside of me in terms of my surface personality is a play of forces. There's a nature outside of me which is interacting with my surroundings and generating some ideas, generating some emotions. And I can watch them because I'm not identified with them, I'm anchored within. So that will help me to accept myself more and more and not lead to that or give into those contradictions and try to like micromanage myself, but I will have more of a macro view of who I am. And that will help me to automatically create that distance. So you can't create the distance from the world mentally because then that gives you a sense of separation anxiety that I'm losing something. But if you can see the world for what it is, then being separate will be a natural byproduct. And that is the difference between attempting to change yourself through the mind and giving yourself to the divine to change you. So that becomes an indicator that what is your path. Because if you're mentally trying to change yourself, that can be the first step. But the mind has to give in to the higher because mind in itself is not capable. It can start us on the path, it can tell us or it can help us modify or kind of arrange our lower nature, but it cannot change it because it is part of the lower nature. So, but it has the capacity and the capability to open itself so that the higher can come in and change the lower. So, the everyday conflict which we have between our mental and vital and the physical aspect that gets resolved because there often On the daily basis, what we have that, oh, I want to do this, the famous head and heart conflict, for example, or I have a impulse to eat something, but I know that that is not good for me. So my mind is telling me, no, no, don't do it, but my vital is like, no, no, but you like it. So these are these tiny, tiny voices in our head which kinds of takes us away from our true nature. So, just to harmonize them in a way that you have something which is behind, you go to that sense and then your action emerges. So, the fundamental indicator for you or for all of us in a daily basis is that when we have the inside to outside approach, then life becomes a field of play. We enjoy because, like I said, that as the teacher knows that these are my students or the mother knows that they are my children, the intention is love, the intention is togetherness, but you let them play because you know that you are standing behind. If something will happen, I am there. And even the child knows. So the play is in freedom. But if our approach is outside in, that I'm really holding on to my instruments, then the play becomes the game of identity. And all of us have that experience of when we play the game of identity, every small thing which we have, we want to hold on to. So if I get a new idea, I want to make it my own. If I meet a new person, I want to make that person my own. If I go to a place, I want to establish my identity there. So when I'm not connected, anything new that comes, we don't see it from an intention of exploration. We see it with an intention of making our own. And that is the fundamental difference between when we see between say love and attachment. So with attachment we want a part of what we are looking or seeking to become our own. In love we feel a sense of wideness, we sense of a sense of freedom. And that is what is the basis of harmony. With our mind or with our attachment, we can create temporary harmony. Because if, say, a family comes together or, say, an organization comes together, they can come together based on a common interest, that this is our common interest and we want to come together and work. So there can be a superficial, there can be a surface harmony that can be created because we are working for the same goal. But once that goal is established, the common interest dilutes, the harmony disappears because the harmony was not coming from a deeper self, but it was coming because of an outside surface intention. So, again, whatever is happening in the surface can be a building block, but it cannot be the structure in itself. And that is very, very important for us to fundamentally understand what is. Like, throughout, I'm trying to give you the example of, say, teacher or mother. Another indicator which we can see that what is causing disharmony is that when we speak about the surface, the physical, our identity, the emotions, the mind, when we find in the process of self exploration, one, what is our strength? So, usually, when we try to do the self work or we try to figure out, we realize that, okay, mind is my strength, or say, vital is my strength. I have a lot of power, I can change the world, or I have a lot of ideas which I can give to the world, or I can have that, oh, there's a lot of physical awareness which I have, and that is my field of work. So the danger comes in or the disharmony comes in when one of the parts becomes our identity and the others take a back seat. Because the method of ego or just the nature of ego is that it hijacks what is good. So it is like whatever is a good aspect of your personality or a more refined aspect of your personality, it wants to project it that that is you. And it quietly brushes under the carpet all that which requires work. So if I'm more of a mental person, maybe say I will become a teacher or a like right now speaker, and I'll be like, see, I can convey good ideas through good speech, and that is who I am. But do I need to work on my emotions? Do I need to work on my physical? No, no, that is okay. I can just sail through by making an identity and a living from who I am on the outside. But inside, I'll know that every time I speak, I find that gap. Or maybe when I'm preparing to speak, I'm aware that no, my vital and physical also need work. But because I know that they need work, I will not bring them to the world. I will only bring to the world which I think I have conquered. And that is what is another reason for disharmony, because what looks perfect on the outside, there are a lot of fragmented pieces behind it. And nobody speaks about those pieces behind, because then it's a very vulnerable space and we are like, no, that cannot be worked. So when you are operating from the principle of ego, you're putting your best foot forward in terms of, see, this is the perfect me. But when you let the inner work on you, you realize that, okay, this is my perfect part, but these are my imperfect or work in progress part. And how can I use the perfect part to also bring these imperfections towards the perfection? So that journey becomes not of projecting what is perfect, but also taking along what is imperfect, and that is, it becomes a continuous journey. And that is what is different in terms of when we talk about yoga as a process, which is more inherent and intuitive and exploratory in self work, or when we talk about self work, say from a surface perspective, or just say an academic perspective or a professional perspective, that we often talk about strengthening the ego, which of course is a tool. But what is the process of strengthening it? Is the process of strengthening the ego is taking the fragmented parts also together, or it is projecting the perfection in isolation and leaving the rest? So once we answer that question for ourselves, then we will understand that how we are really creating that sense of harmony among our different parts of the being. Because once I am much more aware that what is the connection between, say, my emotions, my mind, how are they working together, then the first level of harmony or the first level of unification is achieved. So I am not any more conflicted between, say, my habits and my need for change, or my desire to do something, but my ability or my strength to actually do it. So these everyday mundane conflicts on the surface, we are able to create distance because we are identified with something much more deeper, something much more higher. And this is what gives us a window, this is which gives us an opening to also then start looking for more and more what is inside me, the harmonizing factor. Because mentally I might know that, like how in the beginning I said that nature is inherently harmony, we just have to connect. But what is that part of nature which is inside us, which is harmonious? That is our innermost being. So the element of nature or the part of nature which reflects its true element in us is that inner being which is in each one of us. So once I kind of, with my own little human effort, try to create that harmony on the surface, I'm able to open the door so that I can go to my own inner being. And going to that inner being means a lot of purification, a lot of cleaning, a lot of seeing disharmony. And in fact, that is the reason where most of us have our stories of struggle, that somewhere something major happened and then it told me that, okay, this is it, but what is more? So that is also the element of nature, or say the method of nature. Because man is lost so much in its everyday routine, it needs that sudden change or some sense of loss or pain or suffering to figure out that, okay, this is not what I'm looking for. So most of the cases or situations are that people face certain things and they're like, okay, now I have to pause and turn inward. And some people are just blessed with the idea that they always have that sense that there's something inside and they continue seeking from the moment they are born. So when we talk about these things, we have to identify that what is our method, what is true to us. Is my teacher the ego? Is my teacher the inner being? Am I really seeing the world as a play of forces? Am I really doing the work from inside out, or I'm really working from outside in? What is my method? Because the moment I identify my method, I take that responsibility of bringing in that change. Because till the time I'm just working on the surface, somewhere I have given the responsibility of my work to the world. That somebody will tell me what to do. Somewhere something will come my way and say that, okay, this is what you do. Because one of the reason why we are not so comfortable exploring the subjective space inside of us, because then who will be make responsible for that? If we discover something which we are not comfortable with, or something which our mind doesn't know already, what on the outside will I tell that, oh, this happened because of you? Because in our everyday surface engagements, we are so used to that cause effect relationship, that this happened because of the situation. And also, you will observe when you don't want to do certain things, how your mind comes up with justification that it is not required. Or if you want to do something, also the process is the same. So what does it mean? That everything is present in the world. It's just that the more we refine our lens of perception, the more we see what is required for us to say evolve and not just to survive. So we have to make that shift from that survival mode to evolving mode. And the more we make that shift from that survival to evolving, that is when we become more and more close to what the nature aspires from us or expects from us, the alignment of our own being or our own nature with the larger context of the nature. So, this is also very, very fundamental to understand that how do we claim that responsibility of changing and not make it an egoistic responsibility that says, oh, I can change, but it is like the nature has given us a work and we have to do it in that spirit of service, in the spirit of bringing the knowledge and will together, in the true spirit of sincerity and aspiration to hold the truth, to experience the truth. We can start by an aspiration to know the truth, but our journey is only complete when we experience the truth. And experiencing the truth is a very simultaneous process. I might talk about it through the expression of language, and it might like linear that, oh, this is a journey of going from point A to point B to point C. But in your own experience, it happens at multiple planes at the same time. And in fact, that is the reason, because it happens at multiple planes at the same time. If we are looking at it from the lens of ego, it looks like disharmony. But we are looking at the lens from the inner being, it all looks as work in progress. It looks like small, small building blocks which are coming together to create a perfect personality. So, what lens are you choosing determines your experience. And what is your intention of choosing that lens? So, first, if you are really going from outside, which the language we understand, so what is the lens you are choosing and what is making you choose that lens? So, the more and more you refine your intention, the refinement of action becomes a byproduct. But because we are mental creatures, we want to perfect the action first because that is seen, that is attached to our identity, that is what helps us survive in the world. So our focus becomes action. But changing action is like losing yourself in the multiplicity without being aware that that multiplicity has a unity behind. So aligning our intentions more and more to the unity, to the harmony, to that oneness within automatically brings it that sense of perfection, sense of harmony, sense of alignment outside. So it's changing that perception, and because once we change that perception, rejection becomes very easy. So an aware rejection is a path to progress. A rejection based in fear is something to be questioned about. So I might reject the world in fear that I'm not interested because I don't feel capable to choose what is aligning with my journey and what is not aligning with my journey. But if I am rooted in awareness, I can reject with ease without categorizing. So a lot of our disharmony comes in that, again, in an everyday example about the yes and no conflict. That I want to say no somewhere, but I will say yes. I want to say somewhere yes, I will say no. And usually it happens that what will the other person think, or how will the other person feel? Because somewhere we personally feel incapable of handling situations. Because no matter you know that person for so long, at every point when you interact, you are as of right, you're claiming your identity that see, I exist. See, I'm a good person. So there's a constant need of proving, even in relations, even in interactions, which are a crucial and a fundamental part of your existence. So if we are stepping out of our world, our inner home, with a proving lens that I exist, I want to assert myself, oh, I am there, then I become a yes person. And in fact, I can also become a no person if I'm really coming from that sense of identity. Because if I say no, I assert myself. So, if you want to really pluck yourself away from the yes and no game which we often play on the surface, it is like, what do I truly want? If I want to say yes, I'll say yes. If I want to say no, I'll say no. And that want, again, is based on the truth which I experience. It might not be based on the absolute truth because all of us are in that transitional journey. But if I am basing it on the truth which I know as of now, which is the truth of my being, then what I reject, there is no carryover effect. So that becomes another indicator that if there is a carryover effect of any action which I do in the world, that becomes a cause of disharmony, which means that the action was not aligned to the deeper part of my being. But if there is no carryover effect and I feel completely rooted, that becomes an indicator that I am marching towards harmony. So, in an everyday process to make yoga a very alive thing for us, we have to pick up the clues from the environment. What are my indicators? What is my strength or ability to serve the truth? When am I feeling uncertain? When I'm feeling that no, what I did was not aligning to the place identify with in my own being. So to pick up what are your indicators, how are you serving, what are you serving? So you claim the responsibility of harmonizing with an attitude of serving and surrendering to the divine. So it becomes a simultaneous process of bringing in the human effort in service to the divine will. Because often human effort, through when seen through the lens of ego, can take a very egoistic will form that I want to do it. So the knowledge and will comes together in the service of the higher, in the service of the truth. And that is when we really experience the divine love, the divine hand holding, the divine space, which is the base, which is the fundamentals on which true harmony can be achieved and experienced. So we start with our attempt of harmonizing on the outside, with a connect, with an awareness of the deeper, and slowly grow more and more into who we are. And this process becomes a very everyday, regular, natural process. And this is how the oneness comes in, the unification comes in. And this is, in fact, the whole journey, the whole process which all of us are on a way in our own individual self and also in our own collective self. And I just want to end with something which, that there's this one line, I'm not sure if I'll also say it correctly, but somewhere in Savitri Sri Aurobindo has spoken about how the little person fell and the ego island joined its continent. There's this line which gives a sense of movement, it gives a sense of progress, because progress is very fundamental, and how essentially the way to harmony is bringing the inner and outer together and more enabling the outer to express the inner, and all in the light of divine presence. So yeah, this is what I wanted to share together, that how we bring in harmony in a day-to-day basis. So thank you everyone for listening. Thank you. Dr. Bichnani, would you like to share something?
Aditi made a beautiful beginning, that our essence is harmony, and yet throughout life we are struggling with disharmony. And she made a beautiful ending. The island, the ego island, joining the continent. The ego island. So the continent is harmony, and the island is struggling to join it. It split from that continent and then is seeking to reunite. That is what the journey of life is about. And between the beginning and the end, again there were many gems, one after another. But what I'll concentrate on in a few minutes is one of them, and that was the desire to possess instead of explore, possession instead of exploration. This is something that I found repeatedly in the camps at Nainital. We have health centers in the hills in Nainital, and there we have study camps. And I find that people come there seeking peace of mind, spiritual development, and a lot more. But then invariably I find that there are a few people who start searching for a plot of land in that area. They are not content to enjoy the peace and the beauty of the place. They want to possess something similar in that area, and they start finding, is some plot available, how much does it cost, how much it will cost to have a cottage, and then how will I maintain that cottage, and they get lost in the same worldly, they get entangled, again to use one of these Aditi's expressions, they get entangled in that instead of just getting contented with observing the place and enjoying it. Something like, instead of enjoying the sunshine, we start thinking of how we can possess the sun. That's an impulse. But then these are all the result of the imperfections with which we are born. And nature has constituted us that way. While our essence is divine, the surface manifestation that we have been granted is imperfect. And the game of life is trying to move from that imperfection towards perfection. And that becomes more than a lifetime's job. But at the same time, it can be enjoyed if we understand the process. And not only we enjoy it, the inner being, which is our divine essence, that enjoys it, and the divine that has created us enjoys it. And in fact, all these are the same, because all that is the divine. And why did the divine create it in this fashion? Because for the divine it's a game, it's a leela. And you can understand that in any game, if you start with chaos and you are able to achieve order, you enjoy it. You appreciate the order only because you also seen the chaos. And that's why perhaps this chaos was created, and the divine is just looking at from a distance. I'm talking the divine as if somebody else, but in fact that is also within us. And therefore we are also capable of eventually becoming mere spectators, enjoying the game, at the same time trying to move in the direction in which the game is eventually destined to take us. But all this is a long process, and again, as Aditi said, that it doesn't happen through miracles. It is not a one-time event. It is a process for which preparation is necessary. And if I think in terms of the more traditional type of literature, or traditional type of system which existed in the Vedantic period in India, this preparation was inbuilt. During Brahmacharya, the first phase of life, the person learned how to live. And one of the things the person learned was that the four pillars of life are Kama, Artha, Dharma and Moksha. Kama, desires, quite legitimate to have desires. Artha, the means to satisfy those desires, to accumulate those means is also not a sin, but that has to be done within the framework of dharma, that is a sense of right and wrong. Not try to get as much money, as much wealth as possible, get as much power, position and prestige as possible, no matter what the means. The means had to justify the end. So the means also had to be appropriate. That is what essentially dharma is about. And all that is necessary because the ultimate aim is to get liberated from the bondages of life, that is moksha, that is the bondages which are the result of ignorance. To overcome those is the ultimate goal, and therefore that is possible only if we pursue the worldly desires, that is kama, through artha, within the framework of dharma. So the focus in the first 25 years was on learning what the right way to live would be, and during the next 25 years was grihastha, householder's life. During that the focus was on kama and artha, desires and the accumulation of the means to satisfy those, but the person had already learned. So the preparation had already taken place during brahmacharya. The person had already learned that I have to pursue these desires within the framework of right and wrong. And how did the person know it? One might say that, well, the person had also been told what is right and wrong. To some extent that is true. That is what shastras are about. But then, did the person really have to memorize all the time all those shastras to know what is right and wrong? Probably not. Because while trying to live a life which was guided by the sense of right and wrong, I am sure during brahmacharya and even more during grihastha, the person gradually discovered that inner guide which would tell him more clearly, quickly and confidently what is right and wrong than any shastra that he had learned. So he didn't have to necessarily be told that yes, better than the shastra is the psychic being. Probably the person discovered it on his own during that grihastha period. And then also realize that like any teacher, this inner teacher is also guided by a reward and punishment policy. When you follow its dictates, you get joy and lasting mental peace. If you ignore it, you get a sense of guilt and recurrent uneasiness. But then unlike an ordinary teacher, this is a teacher from whom nothing remains hidden. And therefore you are always punished for doing something wrong and always rewarded for what is right. So that is also something that the person discovered. So all that was preparation in grihastha. And then came the next phase when the person was relatively free from all these worldly responsibilities, which are also important to keep the world running, as well as preparation, because to shower his love and affection and through that grow that is what spiritual growth is about, is much easier when you are doing it for a family to whom you are related by blood or marriage. So preparation was the easy way. But once he had 20-25 years of experience doing it the easy way, now he was ready to move to vanaprastha. The next phase, the worldly responsibilities were essentially over, and now he could use this expertise of loving and giving, which he accumulated during the grihastha phase. He can now spread this love more thinly to a much larger number of people who are not related in that way through blood and marriage. So this preparation comes in handy there, and then eventually vanaprastha becomes a preparation for the next phase. If the person lives that long, beyond 75 or so, then that becomes a preparation for a further detachment, so that the person can be more of a spectator without getting involved. The worldly action can still go on, but with even a greater sense of detachment than existed during vanaprastha. So the preparatory phase was built in. So in a sense, this system was organized in such a way that it took the person in a very natural way through a process that seems rather spontaneous and self-motivated by the traveler on this path himself. So the journey was guided by the person who was both the passenger and the driver. He was gradually moving through his own motivation in a direction which took him towards the ultimate harmony, which is a quest because while it is our essence, it remains a little hidden from us, and it's only through the inside-out process, which is preferable to the outside-in process, as was told just now. So, following this inside-out process, the person gradually moves towards that harmony, which is both the essence and the goal and the ultimate destiny.